in central Arkansas over to northern Mississippi and right there near Memphis as well. Blended model, and we take it, all things into consideration. This is what the Weather Channel's forecast is. And again, it is significant, including multiple inches of snow in Dallas. You may then go over to a little bit of ice. You might have some sleet that mixes in there, but a foot to a foot and a half here along the I-35 corridor. Wichita Falls included in that. Then over to Little Rock, we're thinking maybe as much as 2 feet of snow. And then also, again, flirts with us there around Tupelo and Memphis. All right, that is big time. Again, rivaling some of the biggest snowstorms you've ever seen in these locations. This is bad news as well. Big time ice on the way. Notice how much of Texas is coated in ice. Even small amounts, like 1/10 of an inch of ice, may not seem like a lot. But when you put that in a place like Houston, it's an incredible deal. All right, 1/10 to 1/4 inch in Houston, that could be crippling for us. But what I'm really concerned about was how much ice we could get in places like I-35, Waco to Austin. And this in here, this really heavy ice forecast, those darker pink colors, that's where we now have a lot more trees, okay? Many of these areas in Texas don't have that many trees. When you have a lot of trees, a very significant ice forecast, you're bringing down trees, you're bringing down power lines, you're knocking out power, you're putting, trees onto homes, cars, roadways, travel impossible. Generally because you've got a ton of ice, you can't go anywhere and get traction, but then the trees are knocked down everywhere you look. A glaze would be a trace to a 1/4 inch, hazardous, and spotty power outages. A 1/4 inch to 3/4 inch might be a sweet spot for a lot of you. Tree damage, numerous power outages, but it could be crippling over 3/4 inch, which some of you may see. That's widespread tree damage and long-term power outage. Again, there's a lot of tree cover in some of those areas that I pointed out from East Texas and eastbound from there. Temperatures will be falling. Initially, some of us will start out as rain, then the cold air really plunges south. You'll see this in Oklahoma City. Friday evening, it's 20, but 41 in Dallas. But that cold air will be on the move straight south. And as that happens, notice how the precip changes over from liquid to frozen. For some of you, that may mix. Then it goes over to freezing rain, or it goes over to sleet, then it goes over to snow, and eventually a lot of snow comes pouring down on us through the day on Saturday, and snows at times heavily. And notice how cold it is. And even after the event leaves, we still stay cold, which means, Dr. Knapp, we're not going to get a melt. If we don't get a melt, it means we're in trouble for a longer period of time, and we're probably literally homebound for a couple of days.
It might depress all that snow. The temperature's colder and raise the stakes if you get stuck out on the roads. Right?
You don't already do that.
You do not want to be stuck out on the roads when the temperatures are that cold. So get ready before the event starts. Get to your safe place that you're going to stay for the duration of the storm, including in a place like Oklahoma City where it's 37 comparatively balmy degrees. You're going to wish it was above freezing. Once this event starts, and it takes a long time to get back to 32. And this is likely to be just about an all-snow event for Oklahoma City. Although the farther south you go in the metro, and especially the farther south you go in the state of Oklahoma, the greater the chance, at least at the front end, that you could be dealing with some freezing rain and sleet mixing in. But as the day goes on Friday, the temperatures will be coming down as that Arctic air on the southern side of that high spills in. And here's the mix, farther south on I-35 during the day on Friday. But then, the sooner you get home on Friday, or maybe not go out at all to work, if you can avoid it, the better off you're going to be, because Friday evening, plus or minus, is when the snow is going to begin. Look at those temperatures during the heavy, heavy snow on Saturday. And when it's all said and done, Mike, we are talking about ending the snow event on Sunday in the single digits, but the snowfall will have been in the double digits. Wow.
Then we're going to move it down to Dallas because, the fate that Oklahoma City gets, some of that's going to come down into Big Ten.
What a different story it's going to be just one state to the south.
Yeah, but then to consider is the temperatures are going to be, the cold temperatures will be later to arrive there, right? So we might end up getting a little bit more liquid than we would like at Oklahoma City. But Dallas, you're fine right now. You're overcast, you're mild, you're 54 degrees, and it stays mild up through Friday. And then things change after that as the temperatures dive bomb that Friday night into Saturday. Notice how that plays out again. All rain for you here Friday, and then Saturday, notice in the morning how we go to freezing rain, and then we have mix or snow through the afternoon, and then by evening, cold enough throughout the profile of the atmosphere where everything now is snow, and it'll stay snow through midday on Sunday. Here's what we're thinking right now. This will begin again Friday late, early Saturday, and then through Sunday morning. 7 to 9 inches across the Metroplex. Big time snow and double-digit snows north of the city. There's the ice forecast. In Dallas-Fort Worth, again, that could happen before the snow happens. You might have a layer of ice underneath the snow, and then farther south you go, you get into some of that ice, including Waxahachie, Waco, Davenport, Austin, these locations. Back then, we're talking, quarter inch to maybe as much as a half an inch of ice, which means you are going absolutely nowhere.
Man, I've experienced a combination of ice and snow on the ground, and that just makes it even more treacherous. Now, Little Rock, again, enjoy the time above freezing while you have it, because once we get to Friday, even Thursday night, things will be changing. In fact, it is at least possible, even though this is mostly likely going to be a snow event once we get to Friday night and beyond, but during the day Friday, there could be some rain and maybe some sleet and freezing rain mixing in. So the Friday evolution of things is a bit uncertain. That's why I would urge you to get all your preparations done by Thursday night in case the forecast starts to change and get more concerning for some frozen stuff during the day on Friday and Friday morning before the snow really kicks in. And then, wow, it'll really add up. The location of the highest snowfall totals could shift around. It has been shifting around. And the farther south you go in Arkansas, the greater chance you have of, at least on the front end, getting the freezing rain, which would be very dangerous on the roads. But the snow could really, really add up once we get to the end of the event, with the peak of the snow on Saturday. So temperatures going down as we go through the day of Friday. And again, it's going to be raining in parts of Arkansas during the day Friday. If this is a little farther north and the cold air comes in a little sooner, there could be an earlier onset of frozen precipitation. But certainly by Friday night, getting snowy, and the mix is not far to your south, but Little Rock looks like your greatest precipitation totals are going to be adding up in the form of snow with temperatures in the teens, Mike. So as we go to other cities, you realize that every place we go to farther east, the onset is later.
In a place like Nashville, it seems pretty clear cut we're going to be an all snow event, right? Yeah, it gets a little bit dicier, once you get down to like an Atlanta or a Charlotte or a Columbia, because now we're thinking some ice could mix with some snow, some sleet could be in there as well. So let's talk some specifics here. Atlanta, likely all rain for us Thursday, Friday, and most of Saturday, okay? It's the late Saturday into Sunday when things turn colder for us, and now this is where we introduce ice into our forecast. 90% chance that we get ice in Atlanta. Again, the snow will likely north of you in North Georgia. The heavy snow across the southeast is Middle Tennessee into eastern Kentucky, Roanoke, Winston-Salem, Danville, Virginia, up toward Richmond. Significant snow, though, still falls for it. I say north of Charlotte, as of this thinking with Euro model. Raleigh, then over toward Virginia Beach and Norfolk. You look at the GFS model, it pushes some heavier snow just a little bit farther south, okay, and significantly more snow here. Notice a swath of 1.5 to 3 feet of snow. Blockbuster storm, the likes of which none of you have ever seen before in these locations. But we blend that all, smooth out some of the nuances of the forecast, maybe some of the extremes, and we get this, which again is a very significant snowstorm. Major snow for us across Tennessee and Kentucky. Major snow for us in North Carolina and through Virginia, where some locations might pick up 2 feet of snow, like a Winston-Salem, a Danville, or Richmond. Raleigh, we'd still be in probably somewhere between like half a foot and 10 inches of snow. Crippling ice on the way as well. Chattanooga, that could mean us. Atlanta to Athens, that could mean us. I'd be very worried about I-20 between Atlanta and Columbia. That might be a sweet spot for significant icing. And just like we showed you with Dallas or in Oklahoma City, these all depend on the temperatures. Initially starts off as warm, and then it gets much colder after that. Coldest air to the north, warmer air to the south. And so there's where that dividing line is between the rain, the freezing rain, and then the snow through Sunday. Then Monday, finally clearing out by noontime. Everything is pretty much off the coast, but staying on the cooler side. Raleigh begins for us Saturday, significant snow, ending at some freezing rain. Look at those temperatures. Now, coming up here on the show, what's next after exits here in the southeast? It may take aim at the mid-Atlantic and northeast. What might that mean for places like D.C. or Philadelphia? You're looking dry. You're looking okay. Honestly, now and probably for the next 2 days, the weather's fine. you're going to be dry, you're going to be mild, but then the temperatures come crashing down, and a major winter storm is on the way. Likely an all-snow event for us in Middle Tennessee and across most of the volunteer state for that matter. Begins for Saturday morning, lasts throughout the day and most of Sunday as well. It will come down in bucketfuls and could end up being one of the biggest winter storms you've ever seen in Nashville. Look at these photos, and this, again, not a typo on this map. You're looking at that going, you gotta be kidding me. I get it. It's a big deal. At least a foot. But as we're thinking right now, it might be more than that in Nashville. You aren't going anywhere anytime soon with an event that plays out like that. What it means is prepare now. So you're getting all the groceries that you need, all the supplies that you need, you're gassing up the car, you got your generator prepped and ready to go, and you're prepared to stay at home for a lengthy amount of time, multiple days, because you may not be able to get out of your neighborhood, let alone your driveway, okay? The wind could be up as well. You might have some blowing snow that comes with this pretty strong northeast wind around 20 miles per hour. You can see moderate snow all day long for us here in Nashville. So again, the timing is interesting for us here because it's on the weekend and that's helpful. But again, if you're snowbound, you're homebound, you're just not accomplishing anything here in Middle Tennessee, in fact, most of the state. From there, we go down toward Birmingham, Alabama. Different story for us. Again, this evening, you look okay, you're dry. It is interesting for us here because it's on the weekend and that's helpful. But again, if you're snowbound, you're homebound, you're just not accomplishing anything here in Middle Tennessee, in fact, most of the state. From there, we go down toward Birmingham, Alabama. Different story for us. Again, this evening, you look okay, you're dry, and the next couple of days are mild. It starts off as rain for us. It mostly stays rain, although I'm very concerned about your forecast and maybe the model's not picking up on some colder air that could get into Birmingham and bring you some ice. I want you to, of all the places that we have forecasted tonight, Birmingham, I really want you to pay close attention to the changing parameters in this forecast because as of right now, it's mostly a rain event with temperatures marginally above freezing and maybe ending Sunday evening is a little bit of mix or some snow. The snow, according to the Euro model, is farther north, Coleman, Gadsden, up toward like Huntsville and Chattanooga. GFS model saying something similar. But notice the snow's not that far away. But it tells us that we'll probably have some cold air into Birmingham. Will we end up getting any ice? Again, as of right now, it's not showing that. But I am concerned that it could eventually. I don't want you to be surprised by that. So we can frequently check in with the forecast. From there, let's go eastbound on I-20 to Atlanta. And again, here's where it gets tricky because there is ice in the forecast in Atlanta, and we're 3 hours due east of Birmingham. So the forecast is a little wonky in northern and central Alabama. That forecast for you changes significantly. Atlanta. You're beautiful this evening, but here's what's happening for us by the time we get to the weekend. Significant icing is going to happen in North Georgia. It's way too close for comfort for a very big ice event in Atlanta. Regardless, even if you get a tenth to a quarter of an inch of ice, which would be on the lower end of the scale, it's still going to shut down everything. Very hilly. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. The airport will shut down. It's the nation's busiest airport. But I'm very concerned about this. Crippling ice on I-20, either side of I-20, through South Carolina. And I think that South Carolina may be the bullseye for some of the biggest ice that we see from this event. Atlanta, again, starting off as rain, then it gets colder for us. Morning on Sunday, and then could be multiple hours of icy weather for us in Atlanta, and you are literally going nowhere. So what's our ice storm prep checklist? Very hilly. You're not going to be able to go to Atlanta, and we're 3 hours due east of Birmingham. So the forecast is a little wonky in northern and central Alabama. That forecast for you changes significantly, Atlanta. You're beautiful this evening, but here's what's happening for us by the time we get to the weekend. Significant icing is going to happen in North Georgia. It's way too close for comfort for a very big ice event in Atlanta. Regardless, even if you get a tenth to a quarter of an inch of ice, which would be on the lower end of the scale, it's still going to shut down everything. Very hilly. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. The airport will shut down. It's the nation's busiest airport. But I'm very concerned about this. Crippling ice on I-20, either side of I-20, through South Carolina. And I think that South Carolina may be the bullseye for some of the biggest ice that we see from this event. Atlanta, again, starting off as rain, then it gets colder for us. Morning on Sunday, and then could be multiple hours of icy weather for us in Atlanta, and you are literally going nowhere. So what's our ice storm prep checklist? Have a week's worth of food and medication. That means tomorrow and Thursday, maybe Friday, you're going to the grocery store. Non-perishable food, manual can opener, you may not be using electricity, could be out because of downed trees. Again, you're a city in a forest. Move cars away from trees and do not leave your wipers raised. The thing about it is, you've got to do everything you can to minimize the effects of these storms that we have. They can really do a number on us, especially in locations where we don't tend to handle winter weather all that well. An ice storm like Atlanta is a huge deal.
You know, I'm going to talk about a place like North Carolina, Virginia that are hurricane prone. You know, you do the same things you would to get ready for a hurricane-related power outage. Get prescription drugs filled. Have a plan for people who are medically dependent upon electricity because of their equipment that they need. But the snow is definitely going to be a big issue potentially here in Virginia, getting up to D.C. And the Euro has more snow than does the GFS up into Philadelphia and New York City because the GFS has a track that's farther to the south and the low goes offshore and doesn't bring as much snow to New York City and Boston. Now, while we have Virginia on the map here, it is worth again showing the ice forecast map potential for up into not just eastern and central North Carolina, but up into the Hampton Roads area where you can get a glaze. So if you don't get a ton of snow, even if you do, you can start off with some ice and then have snow. So here, the GFS has a track that's farther to the south, and the low goes offshore. It doesn't bring as much snow to New York City and Boston. Now, while we have Virginia on the map here, it is worth again showing the ice forecast map potential for up into not just eastern and central North Carolina, but up into the Hampton Roads area where you can get a glaze. So if you don't get a ton of snow, even if you do, you can start off with some ice and then have snow. So you gotta be ready for an ice storm here, even in Virginia, in addition to the heavy snow. Because with the Euro showing that Arctic high moving eastward, then the low moves in, and then you get the big time snowfall. But some of this could make the transition over to ice at times. So you get snow with an ice on top of that. Wow, is that treacherous? And there's the wind and the snow for the I-95 corridor. It could be a bona fide nor'easter with some ice and then have snow. So you gotta be ready for an ice storm here, even in Virginia, in addition to the heavy snow. Because with the Euro showing that Arctic high moving eastward, then the low moves in, and then you get the big time snowfall. But some of this could make the transition over to ice at times. So you get snow with an ice on top of that. Wow, is that treacherous? And there's the wind and the snow for the I-95 corridor. It could be a bona fide nor'easter. Whereas the GFS, the precipitation starts a little sooner, it ends a little sooner, and the worst of the wind and the snow stays to the south as the low goes offshore. So still some uncertainties relative to the northeast. Dangers, in fact, you have two. Oh, for Shreveport,
With new gender sets for Clorox. Clearly finally smells as it feels.
well, welcome back to Weather Unfiltered with Mike Bettis. I'm Dr. Rick Mann. I'm going to go to Mike in just a little bit, but I wanted to show you where the winter storm watches are already up for Winter Storm Fern. And for Oklahoma City, this is mostly because of snow. For Shreveport, it's mostly because of ice. And some places in between could get a little bit of both. And here's the snowfall footprint. It is substantial, and it's over a large swath from Oklahoma eastward to the mid-Atlantic. The GFS is generally in agreement with the footprint. The amounts are a little different, and the southern extent is a little different. And I don't want anybody to think that if you're south of where the snow is going to fall, that you don't have any dangers. In fact, you have just as many dangers on the roads and a greater chance of trees coming down and power outages in what could be a substantial ice event. Dallas southward as far south as Houston and Victoria, Texas, for much of the southeast, a lot of big metros at risk, like Atlanta, Columbia, Fayetteville. So whether it's ice or snow, what you see depends on what's happening thousands of feet up in the atmosphere. Mike takes a closer look.
Well, when it comes to major winter storms, the forecast can get quite complicated. Will you get snow? Will you get sleet? Will you get freezing rain? Will you get rain? Well, the key to all of that is figuring out what the vertical profile of the atmosphere tells you, and then you can forecast what type of precipitation you'll receive. So we take a look at the vertical profile of the atmosphere in this scenario. We'll go to 5,000 feet, and from the surface to 5,000 feet, the temperatures are below freezing. So really from the base of the cloud, or the middle of the cloud, all the way down to where we live, temperatures are below 32 degrees. What that tells us is everything that is made in the clouds and falls from the clouds falls as snow, and that's exactly what you see here, right? But what happens when you get the edge of the Arctic air? Instead, or in addition, this is changing from an all snow to an all when temperatures below freezing. Friday's 1 cent. The lows go by, and then lake effects, and that's because we've got our little clipper.
Coble in New York. We're coming. This is CBS News special report. I'm turning to Coble in New York. We're coming on the air because President Trump is speaking to reporters in the
Biden wouldn't do this because he let them all in. You know, if you didn't.
The nighttime sniffling and king fever, best of good flu.
Snow is headed for central Arkansas, the likes of which nobody here has ever seen. Atlanta, ice. That's going to be a serious factor for you across North Georgia. And then Raleigh, double-digit snows could be possible here in the capital. Dr. Dev, it all begins sometime on Friday in the plains. How do we start there?
And that's where we already have winter storms. storm watches, which account for snow and or ice. Farther south you go, the more it's going to involve ice. Farther north you go, the more it's going to involve snow. And these will make their transition to winter storm warnings and in some places advisories. And they will extend perhaps farther south. They'll definitely extend farther east when we get closer to the event in places like Tennessee and Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia and beyond, because we're going to have a tremendous snowfall footprint. The models are starting to get into a little better agreement in terms of where the snowfall footprint is, but there's still differences in amounts in certain towns and just how far south the snow goes. And as we've been saying, if you're south of the snow, you're not out of the woods. In fact, the woods could be a big part of what happens in an ice event. Trees could come down, that could fall into power lines. Power lines could take on weight and come down. Trees could fall onto structures. That's what we're talking about with really significant damaging to crippling ice accumulation. But if you're in a place like Houston or Victoria, there's a chance of enough ice to cause treacherous, life-threatening road conditions. So we've got to be handling a winter storm's effects potentially all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And it's not just the beginning states, it's where it goes after that. And a lot of metro areas could be dealing with the ice in the southeast up into the mid-Atlantic. And we've been talking about an Arctic air mass coming down from Canada. And I want to show you where that's coming from. Here is our disturbance that will ride along the south and interact with that cold air. But you've got this La Nina type of ridge here, and here's all the trophy in North America. This ridge is causing the formation of surface high pressure that's way up here. Part of that high is north of Canada. Truly, that's an Arctic high. This is what's going to come down. And you can see that in the models after our clippers go by and low pressure leaves. Here is that high. And it came all the way from just east of northern Alaska. So that Arctic high is going to be sitting in place by the time we get to Saturday. There is that high coming down, and the leading edge of that below freezing air will be shallow at its leading edge, leading to the freezing rain. It gets deeper as you go farther to the north. That disturbance causes all of that lift and moisture to fall into that cold air. And again, uncertainty in how far south the ice goes and where the ice snow line is. But the Euro forecast model, again, precipitation starts Friday morning, really gets going to wintry stuff Friday evening, and then goes east from there. And then that disturbance causes low pressure to form and throws moisture into that cold air wedge, into the eastern part of the Appalachians. And then you get perhaps a bona fide nor'easter, possibly at the end of it. And one last thing to show you on the TFS, the precipitation starts on Friday morning, but the wintry stuff gets going a little sooner farther east than in the Euro. So another example of how there's uncertainty in the timing and why I keep saying that you won't be done by Thursday with most or all of your preparations. Because Friday gets a little dicey.
It does for sure. So let's put some numbers on what you just showed us in the timing there, because for some of us, it is a huge event, including, according to the Euro model, a foot minimum of snow around Oklahoma City, and a sweet spot for snow along I-40, Oklahoma City to the Little Rock over toward Memphis. That's a big time snow, no doubt about it. GFS model shows something similar, maybe a little bit farther south, shifting the snow with heavy stuff here along the Red River Valley, Wichita Falls, north side of Dallas, over toward Little Rock, where we may be looking at 1.5 to 2 feet of snow. Again, significant snow still in Oklahoma City, maybe around the Lubbock area as well. Again, we're going to see these play out over time and really come into focus over the next couple of days. Again, we're not looking at this event playing out until sometime later on Friday, so we've got a few days to keep a watch on this. But if you blend that all together, this is the official Weather Channel forecast, a large area of 1 foot to 1.5 feet of snow. In that central Arkansas seems to be the spot that everything's focused on right now. So Little Rock, again, very vital that you prepare for this event. Dallas also includes several inches of snow for us. But I think for Dallas, it's likely to mix in with some ice and some sleet. So all kinds of things can happen for you in the Metroplex. This is a concerning forecast without a doubt. Look how much of Texas is under the threat of some ice, all the way down to Houston. A tenth of an inch to a quarter inch of ice in a Gulf Coast city is devastating. That means the city is shut down. We could see, anywhere from a tenth to a half inch of ice along I-35 between San Antonio and Dallas. And then I'm very worried about, say, from about here Tyler and Lufkin, east. This is where you start getting a lot of trees now. You go west of that, not very many trees. But east of there, very heavily forested now. Louisiana, Mississippi, through Tennessee, through northern Alabama. That means in this area, where we've got the highest amount of ice in the forecast, trees will succumb to this. Very heavy ice on trees brings them down, brings down power lines, blocks roads, falls on homes, falls on cars. Very, very dangerous stuff. The glaze would be considered up to a quarter-inch, which means hazards for travel, walking, power outages possible. Then a quarter-inch to three-quarters inch becomes a very serious event, and over three-quarters inch is widespread tree damage and long-term power outages. Again, I think the density tree coverage here in the south really works against us in a scenario like this. Temperatures will be crashing down. They're mild for the next couple of days. Late Friday, watch that cold air really push south from Kansas and Oklahoma down into Texas. Look how the changeover happens with the precipitation types. And it is going full bore for us on Saturday with snow and ice. That could get all the way down toward Houston and Galveston. Look at the heavy snow, the mix, and the ice. As far south as like in Alexandria, Louisiana. And the temperatures in behind that are very cold, so a lot of what happens sticks and stays. But again, look at that snowfall forecast, very significant for us, and that ice forecast also quite significant. And small changes, fluctuations north and south could make a difference here, Dr. Knapp, but whether it be ice or whether it be snow, in either scenario, it's really heavy.
Yeah, and if you're deep enough into the cold air, you think, okay, I don't have to deal with the ice necessarily, but so much snow. I mean, when you get, double-digit snowfall totals, talking a foot or more, and you follow that by bitterly cold temperatures. 34 is going to seem really warm in Oklahoma City in a few days because you're not going to be anywhere near that. And as Friday goes along, the snow is going to begin. Now, the farther south you go in the state of Oklahoma, the greater chance of at least starting with some ice accumulation is going to be a problem. But OKC, it looks like to be just about all a snow event with the heaviest stuff on Saturday morning into midday, not ending until Sunday. And watch what happens to the temperatures in the process. So there's some of the mix farther down I-35. But in OKC, the earlier you can get home, off the roads, and in your place to stay for the storm and the aftermath, earlier you do that on Friday, the better off you're going to be. And once that snow gets going, it is going to be super heavy, and the temperatures, Mike, do you want to be stuck out on roads in single-digit temperatures where help can't come? So the life-threatening aspect of a foot of snow is even worse with how cold it's going to be.
Your point is very well made. The last thing you want to be is traveling. Do not travel. Stay home. Before the event starts, make sure you're off the roads and out of harm's way. All right, from there, we're going to take it over to Dallas and show you what can play out for us. Mild conditions now and the next couple of days. The initial part of this event starts out as rain, and then you're going to go over to some mix, and then you're going to go over to some snow. It's going to get rough for us here in North Texas, no question about that. And I know for some of you, you still have like PTSD from that 2021 event. I get it. This could play out somewhat similarly. Having said that, I don't know if we're going to have the power issues that we had then. Things have gotten a lot better for ERCOT, but I would say this: prepare to be homebound for a period of time. Friday rain, Saturday morning rain, then a switch over to ice, to mix, to snow, snowing Saturday night, and snowing about half the day on Sunday. Here's what we're thinking for a total snowfall forecast. But again, underneath this could be sleet and a glaze of ice. Roughly half a foot of snow in Dallas. Big time stuff. Not that far away, just to your north, double-digit snow. So again, incredible amounts for us here in North Texas. And then there's the ice in the Metroplex, and then the ice really accretes farther south of there. So I'm thinking, Waxahachie down toward Waco, and Waco to Austin could be quarter-inch to half an inch of ice accretion, which means the roads will be impossible to travel on here. So either way you slice it here, Dr. Knapp, if it's not snow, it's ice. Neither are a good deal for us here in Texas.
And Mike, there's still some uncertainty in when the bad weather starts in a place like Little Rock, because they could start with ice and then go to snow. And I want you to be planning to get all your preparations done by the time you go to bed Thursday night, as much as possible, so that you have the ability to pivot for Friday in case things start a little sooner. Because yes, the snow is likely to be going full force by Friday afternoon and evening, and certainly on Saturday. But there is some uncertainty on Friday with when rain or maybe even freezing rain starts. And I don't want anybody to be out on the roads on Friday thinking, well, yeah, you said Friday was going to be clear until the afternoon, and then we have a car pile up because ice starts forming on the bridges early on Friday. So that's at least a possibility to contend with. But the snow will be the big deal when it's all said and done. And this max snow line could shift around a little bit, but my goodness, we're talking about tremendous totals that could be some of the biggest snow events we've ever seen in Little Rock. So I want you to be thinking about how important it is to get off the roads as early as possible on Friday and be ready to alter your plans if things start to go downhill earlier on Friday than we think. Because look at that ice accumulation for Friday morning that this depiction shows just south of Little Rock. What if that's a little farther to the north? So be ready for that uncertainty. But there comes the snow Friday evening, and oh my goodness, the temperatures drop and the snow keeps dropping, Mike.
Well, in a place like Atlanta, not necessarily snow in our forecast, but potentially a lot of ice in our forecast.
I'd almost rather have snow.
And in a city that is a major hub, the busiest airport in the country, and then of course you're driving everywhere, and you think about a city like Atlanta that can be very hilly. I feel like Atlanta and Pittsburgh are somewhat similar, where there's a lot of hills, and you get some ice, boy, that is crippling. Atlanta will be rain for the next several days. Tomorrow should be dry. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, rain. Then Saturday into Sunday, that's when we go over to icy weather for us here in North Georgia. Here's a look at that snowfall forecast by the Euro model. Plenty coming for us here in Tennessee, in Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina. Some pockets where you might have as much as 2 feet of snow. And this is crazy to think. The GFS model says there's even more. The Euro, I thought, was bonkers at 2 feet of snow. And it's usually a conservative model, very reliable, very trusty. This is crazy, right? 2 to 3 feet of snow would be epic. This is snow that you've never seen in these places in your lifetime. Now, again, take this with a grain of salt. This may come down a bit over the course of time. I believe it will be. 3 feet is just an insane number. But you blend it all together, here's what you end up getting the official Weather Channel forecast, which still calls for as much as 2 feet of snow in portions of Middle Tennessee, East Tennessee, and then especially through like northern North Carolina, then up through Virginia. Could you imagine 2 feet of snow in Richmond? My goodness, it's like nor'easter-esque kind of stuff here. But notice that Atlanta, Birmingham, and Columbia has no snow in the forecast, but this is the issue there. I-20, that's where I'm really worried about the ice. Look at all of this crippling ice could be in our forecast here, where now you're concentrating that on a major interstate, major cities here, some capitals here, and ice that goes over largely forested areas where trees will come down left and right. You'll be without power for a lengthy period of time. You're going to operate a generator, make sure it's gassed up, and make sure you operate it only outside. There's the rain initially, and then we're going to see the temperatures take their time cooling down. That'll happen for us late Saturday into Sunday. All that pink is ice, all the purple is mixed, and all the blue is snow. Look at those temperatures now precarious as they get down below freezing. Then through the afternoon they warm on Monday, hopefully allowing some thaw, but potentially by that time the damage has been done. Then the camera, you're looking dry, you're looking okay. Honestly, now and probably for the next 2 days, the weather's fine. You're going to be dry, you're going to be mild, but then the temperatures come crashing down, and a major winter storm is on the way. Likely an all-snow event for us in Middle Tennessee and across most of the volunteer state for that matter. Begins for Saturday morning, lasts throughout the day, and most of Sunday as well. It will come down in bucketfuls and could end up being one of the biggest winter storms you've ever seen in Nashville. Look at these totals, and this again, not a typo on this map. You're looking at that going, you better be kidding me. I get it. It's a big deal. At least a foot. But as we're thinking right now, it might be more than that in Nashville. You aren't going anywhere anytime soon for an event that plays out like that. What it means is prepare now. So you're getting all the groceries that you need, all the supplies that you need. You're gassing up the car. You got your generator prepped and ready to go. And you're prepared to stay at home for a lengthy amount of time. Multiple days, because you may not be able to get out of your neighborhood, let alone your driveway, okay? The wind could be up as well. You might have some blowing snow that comes with this pretty strong northeast wind around 20 miles per hour, and you can see moderate snow all day long for us here in Nashville. So again, the timing is interesting for us here because it's on the weekend, and that's helpful. But again, if you're snowbound, you're home parameters in this forecast because we do a number on us, especially in locations where we don't tend to handle winter weather all that well. And I storm Atlanta is a huge deal.
Now I'm going to talk about a place like
Anywhere the airport will shut down is the nation's big hours due east of Birmingham. So the forecast is a little wonky in northern and central Alabama. That forecast for you changes significantly. You're beautiful this evening, but here's what's happening for us by the time we get to the weekend. Significant icing is going to happen in North Georgia. It's way too close for comfort for a very big ice event in Atlanta. Regardless, even if you get a tenth to a quarter of an inch of ice, it would be on the lower end of the scale, it's still going to shut down everything. Very hilly. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. The airport will shut down. It's the nation's busiest airport. But I'm very concerned about this. Crippling ice on I-20, either side of I-20, Alabama. That forecast for you changes significantly. You're beautiful this evening, but here's what's happening for us by the time we get to the weekend. Significant icing is going to happen in North Georgia. It's way too close for comfort for a very big ice event in Atlanta. Regardless, even if you get a tenth to a quarter of an inch of ice, it would be on the lower end of the scale, it's still going to shut down everything. Very hilly. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. The airport will shut down. It's the nation's busiest airport. But I'm very concerned about this. Crippling ice on I-20, either side of I-20, through South Carolina. And I think that South Carolina may be the bullseye for some of the biggest ice that we see from this event. Atlanta, again, starting off as rain, then it gets colder for us, morning on Sunday, and then could be multiple hours of icy weather for us in Atlanta, and you are literally going nowhere. So what's our ice storm prep checklist? Have a week's worth of food and medication. That means tomorrow and Thursday, maybe Friday, about this. Milwaukee in northern and central Alabama. That forecast for you changes significantly. You're beautiful this evening, but here's what's happening for us by the time we get to the weekend. Significant icing is going to happen in North Georgia. It's way too close for comfort for a very big ice event in Atlanta. Regardless, even if you get a tenth to a quarter of an inch of ice, it would be on the lower end of the scale, it's still going to shut down everything. Very hilly. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. The airport will shut down. It's the nation's busiest airport. But I'm very concerned about this. Crippling ice on I-20, either side of I-20, through South Carolina. And I think that South Carolina may be the bullseye for some of the biggest ice that we see from this event. Atlanta, again, starting off as rain. It's not shown in North Georgia. It's way too close for comfort for a very big ice event in Atlanta. Regardless, even if you get a tenth to a quarter of an inch of ice, it would be on the lower end of the scale, it's still going to shut down everything. Very hilly. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. The airport will shut down. It's the nation's busiest airport. But I'm very concerned about this. Crippling ice on I-20, either side of I-20, through South Carolina. And I think that South Carolina may be the bullseye for some of the biggest ice that we see from this event. Atlanta, again, starting off as rain, then it gets colder for us, morning on Sunday, and then could be multiple hours of icy weather for us in Atlanta, and you are literally going nowhere. So what's our ice storm prep checklist? Have a week's worth of food and medication. That means tomorrow and Thursday, maybe Friday, you're going to the grocery store. Now, perishable food, manual kit, through South Carolina. And I think that South Carolina may be the bullseye. Still going to shut down everything. Very hilly. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. The airport will shut down. It's the nation's busiest airport. But I'm very concerned about this. Crippling ice on I-20, either side of I-20, through South Carolina. And I think that South Carolina may be the bullseye for some of the biggest ice that we see from this event. Atlanta, again, starting off as rain, then it gets colder for us, morning on Sunday, and then could be multiple hours of icy weather for us in Atlanta, and you are literally going nowhere. So what's our ice storm prep checklist? Have a week's worth of food and medication. That means tomorrow.
ice accumulation that could not only be just as bad, if not worse on the roads, but worse for trees coming down, maybe structural damage, maybe power outages that could last a long time from Texas all the way through the Mid-South here, Atlanta, Columbia, up into North Carolina, even into the Hampton Roads area. So whether it's ice or snow or freezing rain, what you see depends. Think that if you're south of the snow, that you're out of the woods. Look at the significant ice accumulation that could not only be just as bad, if not worse on the roads, but worse for trees coming down, maybe structural damage, maybe power outages that can last a long time from Texas all the way through the Mid-South here, Atlanta, Columbia, up into North Carolina, even into the Hampton Roads area. So whether it's ice or snow or freezing rain, what you see depends on what happens thousands of feet up in the atmosphere. Ice accumulation, either different, and you get deeper into cold air, maybe you get a little bit more snow.
As we get closer and closer to
There can still
Tomorrow, about 205 million of us will have temperatures below freezing. Friday's 170, and by Sunday, because this is the push that's going to happen, okay, we're going to get this cold push that comes all the way down from Canada. Those purple and blues that you see there on Friday, they go even farther south. So by Sunday, notice they've gone all the way down here to the Gulf Coast. They've gone to the Mid-Atlantic, and I do think there'll be some spots here in the southeast where you'll probably get some of that chilly air as well. It's going to be a really close call for that rain-snow line, and it's going to be a very close call for like the freezing rain line. Here's a look at Saturday. Arctic cold settles in. So the coldest there really plunges down in this direction. So that means significant ice and snow in places like Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. Highs are going to be as much as 15 to 30 degrees below average, and it may be that way for several days. On Saturday, high temperature forecast for you. Just 26 in Dallas, just 11 in Oklahoma City, 24 in Nashville, 16 Cincinnati, 33 in Raleigh, 17 in New York. So you kind of get the feel here that the cold air is there and will lead to a very significant snow event and ice event. So here are the hourly wind chills that we'll see as well. This is brutal stuff. Look at these numbers for Friday morning. Des Moines, Minneapolis, Duluth, nearly 50 degrees below zero, 27 below in Chicago. Dangerous stuff for us. 10 below in Detroit. If you go to Saturday morning, now spreading across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast, Boston will have a wind chill of 10 below zero. Burlington, Vermont, 23 below and below zero in New York. You don't be outside walking around in this. Stay cold for us even Sunday morning. So again, as I mentioned, the cold has staying power and the wind sticks around as well. Even on Monday, a very breezy setup across our northern states. And so we stay stuck in a pattern of cold air and wind chills that are brutally cold. Minneapolis, forecast low temperature, ambient air temperature tomorrow at 11, then below freezing significantly after that. In fact, well below zero after that. Friday and Saturday morning, the coldest is 17 to 19 degrees below zero ambient air temperature after that.
So, Mike, it's going to be a dangerous time for the Great Lakes region.
50 feet of it, but also very significant icing just south.
People are already stopped in the south, and the north is short on goods. They're short on food, they're short on medical supplies, they're short on everything. Bad here, but probably way worse there, right?